Welcome to Games Addict TV. I'm Jason and I'm a Games Addict. I've been playing games for 35 years and spent the last 25 years working in the video games industry in development, sales, journalism, marketing and running an international video games company. I grew up watching TV shows like Games Master, Bad Influence and Games World, but as the industries continue to grow, the mainstream media seems to be less and less interested into what to me is the most creative, inspiring, thought-provoking, and let's not forget, largest entertainment industry in the world. With the explosion of web and social media, there's an abundance of gaming content available, but nothing that I could watch regularly and enjoy. So rather than sit back and bitch about it, I decided to put my experience and passion for gaming to good use and create my own show. So hopefully, you guys will enjoy it. So let's start with the news, and I'm so excited to be able to say this. We're getting a Psychonauts 2. For those unfamiliar with Psychonauts, it was the brainchild of Monkey Island and Grim Fandango legendary developer Tim Schafer and Double Fine Studios. The original game was released in 2005, and you played a young guy called Raz, who was a psychic secret agent. He jumped into people's minds and helped them with their emotional baggage over some of the best and most creative platforming levels ever seen. In order to pay for the development, Tim and Double Fine have gone down the crowdfunding route. So let's take a look at some excerpts from their crowdfunding pitch video.
Hi, I'm Tim Schafer, and 15 years ago, I started Double Fine Productions for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I wanted to make a game. A really specific game, actually, about a young acrobat who runs away from his family's circus to become a psychic secret agent. It's a game with surprises and action and fun and a couple of weird parts and some jokes in there. A game called Psychonauts. And now I'd like to make another one, and I need your help. Here's our plan. We're gonna ask for $3.3 million here from you lovely people, because that's what you generously gave us the first time we did this. And just like we did with that game, Double Fine will be contributing a significant amount of the budget itself. The campaign for Broken Age took the world by surprise. It proved, among other things, that people still want adventure games. Which is great, but what about another kind of game? What happened to 3D action-adventure platformers with stylized graphics and color and humor? Where are those games? That's something that I really wish there were more of, and I think other people out there do too. And you know what? We don't have to wait for someone to tell us that the games we love are coming back in style. We can make it happen on our own, but only if you're into it. Are you into it?
Dude, why are you even asking me? You know I'm into it! Wait a second, that's the one I was in, right?
Pretty cool, right? They've raised $3.8 million from a $3.3 million target. That's pretty impressive. It's not the total budget for the game though. That's going to be around $10 to $15 million, but Double Fine and an external investor are both contributing towards the difference. It's being developed for PS4, Xbox One, PC and Mac in 2018. They're also doing an exclusive Sony VR version called The Rhombus of Ruin, which will be out before, and that sets the scene for the sequel. But I can't say I'm as thrilled about that version, because I'm just not thrilled about virtual reality. Listen, I've no doubt that it'll be fun, weird and hugely enjoyable, just like Tim Schafer himself. Next, Uncharted 4 has been delayed again until March the 18th, 2016, which is just inside Sony's financial year end. Go figure. This PS4 exclusive is set 3 years after Uncharted 3 and sees our favourite hero living a sedentary life as a married retired fortune hunter. Until that is, his long believed dead brother Sam appears and asks for Nate's help in finding long lost pirate treasure. You can see from the in-game video footage, it looks incredible, which is what you'd expect from developer Naughty Dog. They've suggested that this may well be the fourth and final instalment of the series, so I'm sure that they plan to go out with a massive emotional bang. And finally, we've confirmed release date for Dark Souls 3. Prepare to die on April the 12th, 2016 for Xbox One, PS4 and PC. It's the latest in the series from a hardcore Japanese role-playing game from legendary creator Hidetaki Miyazaki, and he's confirmed this is not the last in the series, but the turning point, which is really intriguing. There'll be a number of new features, including weapon battle sets, which allow you to change stance and weapon abilities on the fly. You'll also have the ability to respec your character mid-game, and a return to mana-based magic from Demon Souls, rather than the number of cast system that they used in Dark Souls 2. With the power of the Gen 4 console, it's no real surprise that the gothic environments and the creatures look phenomenal and deadly, and there'll be huge bosses, new attack patterns, and of course, you're gonna die a lot. The Hidden Gems section is where I'll highlight a fantastic game that maybe hasn't had the high profile of some of the bigger gaming brands, but is one that I think you should play. This episode features Ori and the Blind Forest from developer Moon Studios and is available on Xbox One and Steam. Ori is a stunning 2D platformer with a nod towards Castlevania and Rayman, not in the way it looks, but more in the way that your progress is locked until you gain the necessary skills to progress. It starts with a beautiful silent opening, full of emotion, friendship and sorrow. The telling of the story almost brought a tear to my eye, with the depth of the emotion, yet the simplicity of its wordless delivery. You play Ori, a small yet agile forest creature, tasked with healing a dying forest world. You navigate levels by jumping and climbing, and as your skills improve, you learn upgrades like double jump, wall jump, glide and slam, which alter the way you play and the areas you can reach. Ori is small but perfectly formed and is an absolute joy to control on levels packed with ingenuity and thoughtfulness. Don't get me wrong, it's hard and it's occasionally frustrating, and maybe not one for gamers with sausage fingers, but your patience is always rewarded and progress is consistent and fun. You gain experience as you progress, and this is used to upgrade your skills along 3 specific skill trees. Ori can fire energy balls, slam into enemies, and eventually even redirect enemy fire back the way it came, or use it to slingshot his way around the map. This way of navigating the map becomes really important as you progress, as it's used to reach those hard to get power-ups, as well as escape some of the end of level set pieces, such as fast rising water-filled caverns and bubbling lava mountains. These sections can be a little frustrating if your dexterity isn't bang on, but they do reward persistence, and eventually you'll be flying around the map like a true pro. Visually and audibly, Ori is a triumph, one of those genuinely beautiful artistic creations that works in 2D but manages to deliver a truly living, breathing world. Fire, ice, trees, fog and underwater elements are all delivered with depth and scale. You believe Ori is a tiny part of a much larger world, and you have real empathy with the size of his challenge ahead. Sometimes words and video alone don't do a game justice, and this is one of those occasions. Sometimes you want to get lost in the fairy tale telling of a story that tugs effortlessly at your heartstrings while providing you with a very tight, well-designed and fiendish gaming experience. Ori is beautiful, it's challenging, it's visually stunning and incredibly rewarding to play. This is one of my personal top 10 games of the last year. Please give it a try. You owe it to yourself to experience true gaming beauty. Next it's time for Rant About, and today I'm going to rant about ratings. Every video game released has to go through a rating procedure. There are 3 primary ratings bodies outside of North America and Canada. PEGI covers most European markets excluding Germany. Germany has its own ratings board called the USK, and the ACB covers Australia and New Zealand. Firstly, why are there 3 different ratings boards covering these markets, and why do their costs differ so much? If you were to submit a new game to PEGI, for example, under their fast track procedure, which is the quickest rating option, it would cost you €4,000 for the first platform and €2,000 for each additional platform. So, an identical game on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Wii U and PC would cost €10,000 to rate. Compare that with the USK and Germany, and their cost for the same game on the same 4 platforms would only be €3,000, while the ACB in Australia would only charge you $1,300 Australian dollars, which is about €800 for the same game on the same 4 platforms. It makes no sense why PEGI can charge 12.5 times what the ACB charges for basically the same job. It's nonsense, and I've never had a reasonable explanation for those inflated costs. My second rant about ratings is the significant impact it has on both the developer, the publisher, and you, the customer. I'll give you an example from my publishing past. This is Alvin and the Chipmunks, and it was rated a PEGI 12. This is the same rating as Final Fantasy VII, Fable, Need for Speed, Medal of Honor, and Super Meat Boy. This was a game aimed at children, aged between 4 and 8, and yet it went to market with a rating of 12 and a bad language descriptor. What's so bad about Alvin? Was he violent? Was there chipmunk on chipmunk sex action? Was there dismemberment? Some may wish there was, but no. There was one bad word. Alvin was a singing and dancing game aimed at kids, and one of the 30 songs contained the line, "What the hell happened?" That was it. It had the word hell, which resulted in it receiving a PEGI 12. Kids would hear worse on the playground or watching EastEnders. It also had an effect with customers. We had parents and grandparents with kids who were huge Alvin fans not buying the game because they worried about the 12 rating and the bad language, thinking we were going to corrupt their kids. We couldn't say what that bad language was on the box. You couldn't say it uses the word hell, but not in a bad context. And in their eyes, of course, that bad language descriptor could have been any number of different, far more offensive swear words, like cockwomble, for example. So, the cost of ratings is prohibitive and inconsistent, and so's the way they rate their games. They need a better, more efficient process with more context and realism in how they rate. And that's why I think the rating system as a whole needs updating. Rant over. Now it's time for a review, and I'm going to look at Rise of the Tomb Raider, an Xbox One exclusive. Lara Croft returns in a third-person action-adventure battling against the mysterious Trinity across Syria and Siberia. Very similar in play style to the previous Tomb Raider game, so it's less about tombs and more about exploration and combat. If you're familiar with games like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, you'll feel very much at home with the navigation, combat and crafting, as they're very, very similar. Combat is largely gunplay based, with different types of weapons available, including pistols, shotguns and assault rifles, and you also have your trusty bow and arrow. The bow is used for stealth kills and firing explosive, poison and fire arrows, as well as helping you navigate by creating zip lines between areas. You also have an axe, which is used for melee kills, as well as climbing ice walls and caverns. All of your weapons can be upgraded by finding salvage, environmental supplies like wood, and using skins from hunted animals. The exploration and combat is beautiful, it just feels right. The controls are crisp, making navigating and fighting very natural. And it's a real compliment to the developer Crystal Dynamics that you rarely get that feeling of not being quite sure where to go or how to get there. Combat is also really challenging, but quite progressive. There's very rarely a fight that you can't win with a little bit of strategy and, of course, the right weapon choice. In Rise of the Tomb Raider, these missions and the optional tombs you complete via physics-based puzzles offer you really good rewards, like new weapons and upgrades or new outfits that have health regeneration abilities, so they're well worth completing. Visually, it looks outstanding. I know it's on next gen and has immense processing power, so it should look great, but it still has to be used effectively, and they've nailed it. Snow-capped vistas, really good dynamic lighting effects with buildings and forests on fire, hostile swamps with great water you can explore, and bold cinematic set pieces and environments make it look tremendous. It's a genuine joy to play. I remember when I played the last Tomb Raider game, which was the first of the new versions. I remember that feeling of playing it and thinking, I just don't want this to end. It's just fantastic, a genuine 10 out of 10 game experience. I'm delighted to see Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix has carried on that ability and direction. It's a fantastic, mature, involving, intelligent, fun game. Fans of Tomb Raider? Absolutely buy it. Fans of third-person action-adventure games? Buy it. It's a real contender for Game of the Year for me, and it leaves with a very well-earned 5 out of 5. It's insider feature time, and I'm going to talk about crowdfunding.
Earlier in the news section, I talked about Tim Schafer and how he'd crowdfunded Psychonauts 2. Crowdfunding is when a developer pitches their game idea to a crowdfunding platform like Fig or Kickstarter and asks for money from the public to develop their game. Donations can be made for different amounts with different rewards. So for $20, you'll get a digital copy of the game when it's released. For $30, you'll get the game and maybe a signed picture or a t-shirt. But for $10,000, you may get a trip to hang out with the developer in America, attend the launch party, and even have a character in the game that looks like you. Why would a developer choose to crowdfund? There are three main reasons. Firstly, they may have pitched it to all the available publishers and received little or no interest. This doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad game idea, but possibly they couldn't agree commercial terms, or the game just didn't fit within the publisher's release strategy. Secondly, the developer may want to retain 100% creative control, and this is only really possible if they fund it themselves. Publishers, rightly, always want to provide input into a project they're funding, and this can sometimes lead to creative disagreements, which cause the project to lose focus and become delayed. The last reason could be simply to secure a better financial position when they do actually approach a potential publishing partner. This changes the relationship to more of a sales, marketing and distribution partner, and the royalties the developer could expect to receive would be far greater if they funded the game themselves. The publisher would only be expected to contribute to the cost of manufacturing and marketing the game, so their return is much lower as they're not expected to recoup the cost of the actual development as well. It also gives the developer a little more choice in who they work with, as the publisher won't be the developer's only source of income during the development. They're the reasons in favour of crowdfunding for the developer, but what are the risks? There are two main issues. Firstly, the lack of a publisher means the production responsibility is entirely down to the developer, and they may lack the internal skills or personnel to effectively manage the project. Every game development is broken down into chunks called milestones. These milestones are usually monthly and include specific deliverables. For example, month 1 could be to deliver a design document, and month 2 could be to deliver main character artwork drafts and a first pass level design plan. If this was a publisher funded product, there would be a monetary value assigned to each of those deliverables, so the developer knows they won't get paid each month unless they actually deliver each item on time. This focuses your mind when you need to pay your own bills. However, with crowdfunded game, there are no controls in place on the developer to deliver, so things can get delayed. Let's use one of Double Fine's other crowdfunded games as an example. A 3D adventure game called Broken Age was kickstarted on February the 8th, 2012, asking for $400,000. It ended up raising $3.3 million from 87,000 backers. The game was originally planned for an October 2012 release, which was pushed back to early 2013 and then again to September 2013. In mid-2013, Double Fine re-evaluated the project, realising at their current rate they wouldn't finish the game until 2015 and would have run out of money before then. So they decided to adjust the schedule by splitting the game into 2 acts, funding the second act from sales of the first, which was a very risky strategy. The first playable version of Act 1 was released on Steam's early access platform in January 2014, allowing them to receive revenue to finish the remaining development. After releasing Act 1, they confirmed 1 month later that Act 2 wouldn't actually be ready until 2015, and it was eventually released in April 2015. Backers of Act 1 did receive Act 2 for free, but some time after their original money pledge, 38 months later in fact. I'm not saying all of this would have been prevented if a publisher was involved, but the drip feeding of funds by Milestone is more reliable than having all the money available upfront to the developer with fewer controls or experience in place to manage it.
But at least they got their game eventually, right? The second issue is that there are some who don't ever finish the development. Code Hero raised $170,000, ran out of money and cancelled the project. Yog Ventures, based on the popular YouTube channel, raised $576,000, was cancelled and the developer was closed. The Stomping Lands raised $144,000, released an alpha build which was poorly received, and it was taken off Steam, never to be heard of again. And my personal favourite fail, Ant Simulator, which has been cancelled after its lead developer accused his partners of stealing funds for, and I'm directly quoting here, Liquor, restaurants, bars, and even strippers. We've all been there. So whose responsibility is it? Although Kickstarter say if your project is funded, you are required to fulfill all rewards or refund the backers. But the relationship is between creator and backer, so Kickstarter has no authority or liability. So the responsibility falls to the developer, and although they know they could face damaged reputation or even legal suits if they don't refund, let's be honest, if their studio is about to close due to lack of funds, it's unlikely this will take a higher priority than paying staff wages or their utility bills, for example. I absolutely think crowdfunding has a place, especially if it allows great independent games to be released that otherwise would never be seen. But I also believe crowdfunding is better suited to smaller projects with less risk rather than multi-million-dollar deals for huge games with limited controls from developers who maybe believe publishers simply offer no value anymore. Thanks for listening.